What's up, everyone? Welcome to the RRBG podcast. Today, I'm welcoming back my homie, Mr. Nick DePirro of Night Verses. How are you, brother?
Doing well, man. Thank you for having me back.
Of course, man. We were going to do this in your studio, but now that we have this new setup, I want to bring people here so we can hang out and have a chill environment, not be in your workspace, you know?
No, it's good to get out, honestly. I'm stoked to be out here.
Yeah, I mean, you've been spending a lot of time, assuming, in your studio. I know throughout the pandemic, I was watching you do a lot of stuff, a lot of writing on Twitch, and I know that the new Night Verses album, Every Sound Has a Color in the Valley of the Night, is a double album. So you've been working a lot.
Yeah, a lot of music. During COVID, I was doing all the Twitch streaming stuff, so I was doing a lot of songwriting live on there, and between that, writing for Night Verses over the last couple of years. You know, our last record came out in 2018, and pretty much right after that, we kind of just went straight into writing again as well. We were always writing, so just the combination of that, and I have another project, Headcave, as well, and just been a lot of music.
And you're doing solo stuff. I saw there was a Nick DePirro song, just by yourself. What was it called? I wrote it down here. Merry Days.
Yeah, it's been cool. I mean, so like with the Twitch stuff, that was all live. So I called those Twitch sessions, and I didn't really consider those songs as like proper solo material in the sense of I was writing them on the fly. I was writing them with people essentially. Like there would be times where, you know, even my chat on Twitch, the people in the chat would like suggest things. So it was kind of at times collaborative in that way. And this year was the first kind of beginnings of me actually like kind of really trying to write my own music without kind of anybody hearing it until I released it. And it's been pretty cool. I mean, I released 3, I think, songs so far in that way. Just kind of singles, trying to do roughly one every month or two and just kind of try to keep consistency there. But yeah, it's cool. I mean, you know, between sharing stuff on Instagram, just like random riffs here and there of things I'm working on, all of this kind of gives me more incentive to always try to finish ideas rather than just have things kind of float.
Yeah. I mean, and the solo stuff you put out, like the Merry Days, was a little like more mellow, a little more chill than the Night Verses or Headcave for that matter.
I randomly, so earlier this year, I posted these 2 different riffs, and one of them, or both of them, just randomly took off. Like, I guess I could say they went viral in a sense of like the traffic I got on those 2 posts was like beyond anything I've ever done. I don't know what happened there. Instagram just hooked me up in the algorithm or something. But so they did so well that I was like, well, I need to finish these for sure and release them. And so after that, pretty much like everything to follow, I was just like, I just will finish every idea now. And those were mellow as well. And I've always liked writing mellow things on guitar like that anyway. So like oftentimes I'll just jam, I'll put on delay and reverb and like be on a clean channel and just kind of like have that vibe. And Night Verses does that a lot as well. And sometimes Headcave, but for my own stuff, it just kind of like, that's kind of naturally what I would play. And then also, the heavy things as well. But for that stuff, just kind of, I leaned into it a little bit more, I would say, on those.
Okay. I mean, Headcave being a little bit heavier, and Night Verses being a little more progressive, and then this being a little more mellow. Is there any kind of music that you like have wanted to play around with that haven't yet? That maybe like a specific genre, maybe more electronic based, anything like that?
So I have actually tried to write electronic kind of music before, and I did okay with it. I felt it was a long time ago. Like when we were on tour earlier on in Night Verses, we had a van that was just limo tinted out. So like it was really dark. And so every night drive that I wasn't driving, I would just sit in the backseat with my laptop and just work on songs that didn't have guitar in it. So I would just sit there and just whatever I could program in Logic and, through different instruments and stuff like that, just writing MIDI and like kind of creating songs that way. And I put out an EP that was all just that on my Bandcamp years ago. And when I revisit that, there's things that I actually like still kind of like about it, and I would probably try to do it again. But yeah, I mean, seriously, I have considered a kind of a hybrid of like some lo-fi kind of music, maybe like that. Like I would want to play guitar on stuff, but I like the idea of, you know, break beats or like kind of more that live drum style beat that's kind of a loop versus like MIDI drums or something. So yeah, I would like to try to do more of that stuff. I think that'd be pretty cool.
I think your guitar playing actually kind of lends itself to that. You do a lot of like strange sounds, I would say, or just you play a lot with like the way you pick and the way you do like arpeggios and stuff like that, where if you know, layered with some pedals and some effects, it could sound electronic, but it's actually live playing. Yeah,
I mean, I definitely try to think of ways to manipulate guitars to not sound like guitars sometimes. Like that's definitely a goal, to like occasionally just make people not know what is happening on the track. If it is a guitar, if it's not a guitar, I love using pedals. I love using effects. You know, I grew up on a lot of bands that did that stuff. You know, for instance, like Rage Against the Machine, like Tom Morello did a lot of weird stuff on guitar, and I always thought it was really cool to like find out later that it was actually a guitar versus, you know, a DJ doing something. So that's always been kind of a goal in the back of my head as well.
Nice. Well, let's go back to the Night Versus release. Every sound has a color in the Valley of the Night. How many psychedelics were you on when you came up with that name?
All of them.
All of the psychedelics.
No, honestly, a lot of that kind of like the artistic vision in our band, a lot of that's driven through Eric. Like Eric, our drummer, he's very, you know, there's a lot that he does in our band that I just kind of accept as like that is our vision. You know, that is, like I always agree with like his ideas for the most part and like where he sees things. And he kind of brought that title to the table, as well as like all of our song names and stuff. And, you know, occasionally like I'll have input on like where, you know, I might have an opinion on something, and then that's about as far as I go with it. So a lot of that stuff, like that's kind of that's more Eric's field of like kind of bringing, you know, that kind of stuff to the table. But I always think it sounds, you know, it's always cool. I rarely disagree with what he thinks. So on that stuff.
How did he pitch it to you? I mean, like, what's the concept behind the title?
Well, I think it's sort of up for interpretation. I mean, I'm sure he has a very specific thing as well. But when I think about it, you know, I always think about, there are colors that, you know, this is pretty literal, I'm going to say, but there are colors that I hear I see when I hear certain types of music. So, you know, that could mean, you know, mellow, kind of like ambient kind of stuff. Maybe you think of like blue or like something like that, or more intense music. You might think of, you know, red or like more aggressive stuff like that.
Or 311, you think amber.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, if I were to answer that, it would probably be like that kind of perspective. But I'm sure there's more to it as well. And like we talk about this stuff, and like I have a bad habit of not retaining every single detail of like the vision that he might have on some stuff, because in the moment I'll be like, yeah, that sounds sick, I'm down, and then sometimes later I'll just space on like what something is. So even like our track listing right now, like there are songs, I'm so stuck in the demo phase of our band because I do all of our pre-production and I do all of our demoing, and I actually recorded the guitars and bass for this record.
Nice.
And so that stuff is like I get locked into our demo titles. So even when I start seeing our track listing, I'm like, shit, what song was that? And then I have to like remember, and then I have a list of all our song names with the demo names next to it. It's not until that we start playing shows and like we actually have like a set list of the songs, and people outside of our band start talking about the songs that I have to then reference, and then I remember, I start learning it that way. So it always takes me a sec to kind of get into that.
So you recorded the bass? I mean, don't you have a Riley? What's going on?
Riley recorded the bass. I recorded Riley recorded.
Okay, I was going to say, I'm like, well, put that boy to work. What are you doing?
No. He's far better than I would be. Yeah, no, basically we did all the drums with Will Putney in New Jersey. And so we did that live with him. Eric tracked everything on the record in 5 days, or actually less than 5 days, which was insane. And, you know, I come to accept that that's just what he does. So sometimes I'll forget that, like, I know he's amazing. I think he is the best drummer, if not like gotta be in the top 5 best drummers out there. But, I'd
have to agree.
Yeah, he's amazing. So like that, you know, I've seen him my entire life. I've been playing with him forever. So like I'm used to it. But then sometimes it'll be moments like that where we get in the studio and I'm like, oh yeah, he's the shit. Like he's insane. And when you see it through other people's eyes too, like when I see Will reacting to him and I'm like, oh yeah, like I know he's insane. But yeah, anyway, so we did the drums out there and he killed it. And then after that, I took his live recordings and we went back to my house out in Cerritos with, you know, the three of us, we'd meet up and we kind of work on the songs together as far as the tracking stuff. So there might be things where we would have the demos a certain way, and then when we go to track it for real, you know, sometimes just a new random thing will pop up where it's like, oh, try this instead. And then, so that's why it's good to have them around too, to collaborate. But yeah, so I did everything there, and I tracked Riley, I tracked myself, and it was awesome doing it that way because I think we had, you know, the ultimate control over time and how much we wanted to put into things and like how far we tweak stuff and things like that before it's done, which, you know, could be bad too sometimes. But
yeah, because you can get in your head as an artist, you know, perfectionist, trying to like, oh, and then you hear it 2,500 times, and then you're like, I don't even like it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I also hear, you know, the convenience of that, because maybe some people that are just fans, not really musicians, don't understand like the back and forth that goes on with a producer. Like, yeah, you'll go into the studio, you'll track for 4 or 5 days, but then there's like 2 or 3 months of just back and forth emails. Like, can you put this one thing higher? Can you bring this down a little bit? Blah, blah, blah. And it's just a nightmare.
Yeah, we can be like that too sometimes. I always feel like, I mean, we're very hands-on in our band. We're very like, you know, each of us kind of has our roles that we play, I would say, when it comes to what we contribute as far as like the work beyond the music. Like Eric's, you know, providing a lot of the artistic visions to things, whether it's like, you know, song names, video ideas. You know, he does a lot of our album art concepts. So like all of our songs have a different cover up for them. So like there's a different.
I was gonna bring that up.
Yeah.
So that's all his vision in terms of.
Yeah.
That?
So he has like, you know, a lot of ideas for that stuff, and then, you know, collaboratively, like him and Riley will work on the art together. So he'll essentially create a photo, like he'll set up a whole shoot, give that to Riley, and then Riley will kind of take that sometimes and, you know, add different like, you know, things in Photoshop to it to kind of like elevate it more, or he might even have ideas, or he might manipulate it in a way where, you know, we wouldn't have been able to do that like in person, but because the concept is there, then we can take that a step further if we need to in that way. So like them together, you know, it's a really cool team, and it provides me a situation to be like, yeah, it's sick. I don't know. Or like, oh, that's really cool. I like that one. And that's like my role when it comes to the art stuff. And then I come in with the recording. So then it's like, for them, they can come to me, we can do all of our demos, and I can kind of like, you know, help with that side. So it's actually a pretty cool functioning situation between the three of us. We get a lot done for, you know, some pretty epic undertakings at times. We can make stuff happen. So I'm very appreciative of what they can contribute for sure.
Yeah, man. And it's a very unique situation. And I don't understand why it's unique. I mean, I think more musicians should be that involved with the artistic elements of it. A lot of them, they just focus on the music and then they hire an artist or something. But having you guys actually work on the artwork yourselves really does get the message across more. It showcases the type of talent, the artistic vision that you guys have, where it goes beyond just audio. And if you guys are watching, you haven't seen it yet, the vinyl, I think it comes with a book that's like a 16-page book with each one of the photos that represents each song.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. I mean, I love being able to kind of, you know, feel confident knowing that like that stuff's kind of always consistently progressing between them two. And like with all of us, I mean, we've been doing this for so long together. Like the three of us have been in several bands throughout our lives. Night Versus, you know, will be the last one, I'm assuming, as far as like our core of a band. Like we've been playing this kind of music and wanting to play this kind of music for a long time, and we're finally at a point where I think all of our visions collaboratively are able to get achieved if we have the time and sometimes the budget to do things. We can get there, which is really cool. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, that stuff, like it's just fun to like see things progress like that. I'm stoked on it.
So it's a 2-part album.
Yes.
Part 1 is out now. And part 2 sometime in early 2024. If you were to pre-order the vinyl, you're getting it when the second part comes. Are both parts in the vinyl, or if I order the vinyl that's out now, it's just part 1?
Yeah. So right now the vinyl is a pre-order. So if you purchase the pre-order of the vinyl, you'll get the merch that comes with it currently, but the vinyl won't actually release until the full thing is ready next year. Okay. So the idea with that was kind of like, you know, we put out our last record 5 years ago, and it's been a while since we've had
just crazy
new music.
I can't believe it's been that long.
Yeah, dude, it's been a while. And like, you know, it seems like we've been inactive sort of because of that, but we've been writing and we've been meeting up and doing things, you know, behind the scenes for a while. So to us, we're anxiously like, yo, we want people to hear this stuff. You know, we've been sitting on it for a bit. So we kind of had this idea of releasing the first half of the record ahead of time. So then that way people have something to kind of get into for a little bit. And then the second half will come out in March next year. And then you'll get the whole record by that point. So basically it's not necessarily like a part 1 and part 2 meant to be separated. It's more like you're getting part 1 of the record, and then when part 2 comes out, that is the
full record.
The whole record will be available in the intent that it was made to listen to. But that being said, we consciously picked the halves to be how they are. We picked the order it is, knowing that we were going to do that. So the flow of the first half and the flow of the second half separately would also work, but the whole thing together is the record. And yeah, so anyone who pre-orders it now, they'll get the record. The actual vinyl will come out in March, or arrive in March.
So, you know, on the website it says early 2024, but I'm assuming, I guess that's March-ish.
Yeah,
March-ish.
March will be the area.
All right, and I want to break down a little bit of some of the songs that are out right now, or that
Sure.
you know the half that's out right now. I heard 8 Gates of Pleasure. First of all, what are the 8 Gates of Pleasure to you?
I don't know. I gotta find them. I don't know.
I mean, I'm assuming. I mean, I was gonna say like, oh, lyrically, but there's no lyrics. There is kind of actually. There's technically vocals in that song. I mean, I don't know if they're original recordings or a sample you found, but
Samples, yeah.
yeah.
The 8 gates are my 8 strings on my guitar. That's what it is. Yeah.
Okay.
So that song's an 8-string guitar.
But what's up with those samples? Like, where are they from? Where did you get those?
Those, again, those are Eric's kind of discovery on the samples. So he kind of brings a lot of any voice sample we have, generally, he will find and kind of like provide. I usually don't navigate past like where they're from as much as do they fit into the song, or like can we manipulate them to be cooler or whatever. That one I don't 100% remember exactly where we got that one, but that was a cool one. We had there's I think 2 in that song, that one of them we reused in another song just because it just fit the mood of both. And it was kind of a thing where I was like, it's kind of cool to have a theme, I think, of like repetition throughout songs. Like I think like having things that kind of that connect between songs, I think that's kind of a cool thing. Whereas usually, you know, I wouldn't think to repeat something on purpose. Like that one actually worked, I thought, pretty well. And that was in Love in a Liminal Space, has a sample that's also in 8 gates.
Nice. Yes. And there's another track, Seance, that stood out to me. Who had Justin Chancellor of Tool.
Yes.
How'd that happen? How'd you guys get connected?
Yeah, he did a song with Eric, actually, I want to say a year ago or 2 years ago.
Yeah, during the pandemic, right?
Yeah, it was called, I think the band they called it X2, or maybe that was a song if I'm mistaken. But yeah, they did a collaborative thing together, which was really cool. And pretty much we wanted on this record for the first time, really, since even having, you know, vocals, have some collaborations on this stuff, because like we've met a lot of cool people throughout the last couple of years and just made some friends that we love musically and like always kind of wanted to work with. So when certain opportunities came up to do that, we're like, yeah, let's get, you know, these guys that we can. So on this record, we got Justin Chancellor, Brandon Boyd from Incubus, the vocalist of Incubus, Anthony Green, who's a vocalist of several bands, and Author and Punisher, who provided some really, really cool stuff. And yeah, that's those guys. So
yeah, just those guys. How the fuck did you get Brandon Boyd to do a piece on your music?
Again, Eric.
Eric? Okay.
Yeah, I'm just gonna keep calling Eric back to this. He does artwork collaborations with Brandon Boyd's art company. So they've been working together on stuff like that. And, you know, another time we had a song where we're like, hey, this would be really cool with vocals. And they were talking, and he was just like, kind of asked him like, yo, would you be interested in doing this? And he was down and sent us his tracks. And that was one of the coolest things, because, you know, that's a dude where I think he's one of the best vocalists just ever in general. I think he's amazing, super talented. And, you know, Incubus is a band that we all grew up listening to, just like Tool. And, like that kind of hearing his voice on our music was really cool. And then I had the session myself, so I had his stems and everything. So like when I built that out, it's kind of a trip to like hear it through like my speakers and like my setup for the first time, where I'm just like, oh shit, like we got Brandon Boyd on that shit. But yeah, he killed it.
Yeah.
I'm stoked for everyone to hear that song. And yeah, I think that came out really cool. And I think all the collaborations worked out really well.
Anthony Green's another beast of a singer.
Yeah.
A very unique voice. Anytime you hear it, you know it's him, no matter what project it is.
100%. Yeah, he's one of the best. I feel like from my era or our era of growing up in music, I think he's one of the legends of that for sure. And he's still killing it. And he's always been really good live too. Like I always appreciated his kind of just energy and just like what, he brings to just music in general. Like seems to be a very passionate dude on that stuff, and he's always put out good stuff. I've never really disliked anything that I've heard from him, so I'm stoked that we got him too.
Yeah, I've never met him. I have beef with him because I haven't had him on the show. But I had Brandon Boyd on, and he's one of those surprises to me. Like, that band is like Hollywood Bowl level.
Yeah, I saw them there
big.
actually.
Yeah,
I saw them at Hollywood.
They're huge, and when you meet him, you would have these kind of preconceived notions that he might be a little, egotistical or something. Just because he's so famous, but he's the most down to earth person I've talked to on the pod.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
I mean, he seems like that. I haven't met him myself yet. We've just communicated through email and stuff, but man, having him be part of something we're doing is really, really cool. I appreciate that.
Do you think that's gonna, outside? I know it's hard to like think about how big your band will get or how much something will click with the audience or, all those things. But do you think that, having these guest appearances is going to push you guys to the next level?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like, it's possible. I think like, being an instrumental band has its limitations in some ways. And I think adding vocals to that potentially could break us into other areas that maybe we wouldn't reach without them. I think, I would hope at least their fans of their bands would like the songs that they're on, which I feel like they would. I think if you're a fan of Incubus, you'll like the song that Brandon's on. I think even if you're not, you'll like it as well. I think same goes for all these guys. So I feel like the potential of that is possible. I don't think we'll like blow up over it or something, but you never know. But I feel like the songs are cool. They're there. And like, yeah, I mean, anything's possible, I guess. But I think we're just more stoked to have a new element to our band that we didn't. I mean, we had vocals before, and Doug was awesome. I think having where we're currently at musically, having a vocal contribution actually like elevated where we would have, probably stayed instrumental like on the last record.
I did a little revisit now that you mentioned that before this pod to go back to like the first couple albums with Doug. And in my mind, I was like, well, the band has evolved into something else at this point. Like it's been a couple albums now. It's not just, maybe the first album without vocals. Like you've been without vocals for a while. And in my head, I'm like, oh, their sound is different. But I went back and I listened to those albums, and it still all sounds like Night Verses. Even if like you try to block out the vocals, if you just pay attention to the music itself, it still sounds like what you're doing now. Just obviously what you're doing now is more complex. It's like, more stuff is added, but it still sounds very Night Verses.
That's cool. I mean, honestly, we always wrote instrumentally first. So all of our songs from day one of the band, we wrote before vocals were on a track. So like we would write entire songs and basically send them to Doug when we were living like opposite coasts, and he would send us back ideas, and then eventually he would come out and we would do it in person. But we always were instrumental writing wise. And even before Night Verses, we were instrumental looking for a singer, releasing demos instrumentally and stuff like that. And it's kind of what always made sense to us. And when we actually ended up partying with Doug, nothing on our end changed as far as how we would operate writing songs. Like the only things that we were able to then consider was, well, now we just have to fill more space. And that wasn't an issue, because before it was like, well, how do we take away space to give space for vocals? Now it's like we do whatever we want. And occasionally vocals will fit, occasionally they won't. And we don't have to worry, because now, we can have some songs with some singers if we want and some without.
Yeah, no, I think it's great to have that moment where you realize like, hey, we can do whatever the fuck we want now. There's no limitations. We don't have to consider like that empty space, like you said. Like, let's not add a couple extra notes here just so we can have the singer pop in. So I mean that's awesome. Last thing about Brandon Boyd, I think to get to that next level that we were talking about, maybe a music video with him. Do you think that's a possibility?
Yeah, we would like to do that. I think that is a possibility.
All right.
Yeah.
Talking a little bit about Headcave, how's that? Are you gonna keep going with that? I know that obviously right now most of your time is focused on the album releases and potential tours and whatnot.
Headcave. We're currently working on our next thing as well. So I don't want to give too much details about that exactly, just because like I think it'll be a cool kind of surprise for anyone that knows that project. But yeah, we have a fair amount of songs right now that we will be releasing. Nick, the vocalist, is working on some stuff. Both I think are basically we have a plan for this project to kind of, we want to build everything before we just keep releasing singles. We want to have like a proper amount of things ready to launch. And I think that'll be pretty fun. I think the next phase of Headcave will be the best phase so far. I think, we put out an EP. Basically the way that project worked is the first EP I wrote before Nick was in the band or anything like that. It was just me writing what I thought was like the heaviest shit I could write at the time. I was literally just trying to write the heaviest riffs, the like craziest guitars I could write. I had just gotten an 8-string, so I was kind of like fascinated with writing like with that many notes, and I made a weird tuning for it. That was just a big open tuning. For any guitar players, that would be F, C, F, A sharp, C sharp, F, C, F. So I have 4 octaves of F.
Jesus.
2 octaves of C, I think, whatever, just a bunch of octaves, right? So it allows me to kind of bounce around and do some weird stuff, weird chord shapes, use a lot of harmonics and open notes. And so that EP I wrote before he was in the project. Then he hit me up, wrote over one of those songs randomly, just sent it to me. And that kind of became Headcave. At that point, I was like, oh shit, we have to do more stuff. So from that point on, I started writing with him knowing that he was in the band and he was going to be singing over these songs, which I think kind of shifted my approach to being more melodically focused and more focused on, how, now that I have a singer, I have this instrumental band with Night Verses, I have another band with a vocalist now, like this could be the opportunity to focus on writing choruses and like big things again and kind of go back to that. And I think that's actually what, I don't want to say I regret doing, but I think it led me down a path that kind of got away from the initial vibe of what Headcave really was when it started, which was me relentlessly kind of just balls to the wall, like riffs and just like gnarliness and like not worrying about vocals or thinking about anyone singing over it, just being entertaining on guitar throughout. And that's kind of what we're going back to, I would say, on this next Headcave era. So if you liked Headcave first EP, I think you'll like everything that we're about to do.
Okay. Now, I know this question might be a little weird or hard to answer, but I mean, you mentioned that Headcave is heavy and unrelenting and crazy and all that, but there are moments in Night Verses where they're insanely heavy and crazy and all that. For sure. How do you differentiate when you're writing a riff? Like when you're just at home writing a riff, what is it about that riff that you in your head go, that's Night Verses? I'm going to put that aside for Night Verses versus, like having it for Headcave.
So that has blurred a little bit more in the last couple of years, I would say. Like I used to just kind of only think if I was writing something that was pretty much just like metal, I would assume that was Headcave or something for myself or whatever. Night Verses has metal elements. We've all grown up on that stuff as well. I think I would just assume that. So now what kind of happens, I just will write a riff if it could work in either. I don't really have a rule. Like if I don't even care if a riff ends up in both projects. Like I think that's actually like kind of cool.
Nice.
Because, like you're saying, we can do whatever we want. So like the idea of a band sharing riffs between bands, I don't know that I've heard that before. I'm not saying it's happened yet for the record, but I don't care if it does. So if there is a time for some reason I write something that I want in both projects, I'll do that. But to really answer your question, I don't really know. I think like there's certain fret positions maybe, or like if I'm writing something that's based around the lowest open string in the first fret and it's heavy like that, probably not going to throw that into Night Verses, because Night Verses, I would say we like to spend a little more effort to kind of make things maybe more detailed than something like that. But Night Versus absolutely on this record has some of the heaviest shit we've ever written, and some of that is some of the heaviest stuff I've ever written as well. So like that is going to be pretty cool for some people to hear. I don't think people would expect it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I kind of allow riffs to kind of be ambiguous. So if I feel like something is Headcave, I'll show Nick, and if he's stoked on it, I'll keep it Headcave. If I'm not sure, I'll send it to Eric and Rally too, and like if they dig it, then we'll use it in Night Versus. But there's kind of, it's blurred a lot more recently. I don't think, I used to initially think everything on the 8-string is probably going to be too heavy for Night Versus, but that's absolutely not true at this point. There's a bunch of 8-string stuff on this record. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's that's as good as it can get, Evan. I like the idea of sharing riffs like that because, like you said, nobody ever does that.
Yeah, I do too.
People
like,
get
curious.
Yeah, people get like mad, if that riff is too similar to this other band because you're plagiarizing other people, but you can't plagiarize yourself.
Right, and context is everything. I mean, if I write a riff that I would assume would be for Headcave, that means I'm probably going to program the drums. I'm going to write the bass. But if I give that to Night Versus, I don't know what Eric and Rally would do. And like, I don't even know if the tempo would stay the same. I don't know if like the, key would change. Maybe that same riff gets spread across different guitars and different tunings, but it's the same essence. Like, who knows? And I like the idea of kind of like leaving that open-ended.
Now, you mentioned Headcave. You do all the programming for guitar, bass, and drums.
Yeah.
For Night Versus, how is what's the writing process? Does it start always with you, or does Eric bring something to the table and then you kind of write over that? What's the balance there on writing contributions?
Yeah, it's kind of a mixture. On this record, from doing all the Twitch stuff, I actually had a bank of ideas and concepts that were available to use if we wanted. And some of that stuff did get used. And for anyone that did watch me on Twitch, like that, there are a couple things that people would notice, I think, that they will remember from the Twitch sessions that have a new life to them because of Eric and Riley's contributions. And I'm stoked for people to hear those. But yeah, in general, it varies. Like sometimes I'll start off a song with a riff, or I'll have like a whole song concept or like a part in mind, and I'll send it to the guys to see if they dig it. And then the next time we meet up, Eric will have, fortunately, Eric can program drums as well. And he will write on his kit, and then he can go into his computer and do exactly what he just played in person, do it on the computer, send it to me, and then now I have his beat on my end. And so a lot of times we will do that. He might just send me beats that he's writing, and I'll drop it into my Logic session, and I'll start writing to that. Riley's the same way. He might have a bass line just on its own and just send a bass line over. In our text thread, I've had to delete several things, unfortunately, but we've always just had a bank of, ideas, whether it's video ideas, somebody has a riff they film themselves playing and send it in, and then we take that and build on it. But we're pretty flexible and like very, open-minded with no egos about anything in this band. So we'll try every idea. We'll try anything that anyone thinks is worth pursuing. We'll do it. And, I think it kind of leaves us a lot of room to be creative and kind of like find different challenges and areas within ourselves that like we wouldn't come up with individually. So if I was only writing Night Versus songs, they would not sound like Night Versus entirely. My guitars probably would, but there's even things there that like, in person, if I'm writing something, like I might be improvising in that moment, but Eric and Rally will be like, yo, that's good. Like keep that, record that. Whereas I might have been like, oh, that sucked. And I try 10 other ideas and forget about that one. So, it's kind of good to have that collaboration. And I feel like that's honestly one of our biggest like assets or like values is having the three of us writing together versus like one dude in the bedroom writing every single thing by himself. Cause like, I think there's limits there that you'll reach eventually. Oh, absolutely. And then it becomes just that one person's vision instead of a collaborative, group vision. I honestly, I've gotten to that point. When I started doing music, it was all solo stuff. And now I'm at a point in my life where I'm like, if I'm not working with someone, I can't. I'm over trying to figure out every element by myself. It doesn't feel as fun to be in a room with a couple people and you're kind of vibing and going back and forth and throwing ideas back and forth. So, yeah, I prefer to write in a group setting for sure. I mean, the feeling of jamming and everyone being stoked on something is really like kind of cool, and like it's not something I could get by myself. Like I might write a part that I'm like, oh, this is badass, and kind of sit back and like let my speakers blast it and be stoked. But that feeling is not as crazy as writing something and looking up and seeing everyone be like, yeah, like that's like everyone like vibing on that. It's like, okay, sick.
It's magic. It's literal magic. People don't, people joke around about magic being not real and all those things, but when you're able to communicate without speaking and you're just doing telepathy basically in a room with other people, like that's magic, dude.
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah. And we've been playing together since we're like 15, and I'm, 35 now. It's like probably over 20 years, honestly. We've been playing music together, and that all started, one of the things I really attribute most to my ability to write songs and my ability to come up with ideas is the fact that we spent 5 days a week for years jamming in Eric's parents' house, like upstairs in the room. We had our stuff set up there. We would cut off hard at 10 p.m. no matter what. We never got any issues from neighbors. We're very we were very meticulous about always having band practice, like 7 to 10, everyone would get home from work or whatever it was, and we would go jam, and we would write, and we would try things. And like one song might take us, a week of practice to get like finished, but we always had the drive and like the desire to like always want to meet up and do that. And I feel like that was a huge thing in our development collectively and individually, that like I hope other people who write music have the chance to experience that sometime. Like I feel like that doesn't exist as commonly now because technology has advanced so far that you don't really need other people to make music and release music. You don't need it, but man, like the benefit of having an actual band and people that you can like collaborate with and have chemistry with and stuff like that, it's very, very cool and unique. And I value that so much.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. And you kind of spoke about the Twitch sessions in past tense. Are you not doing that anymore?
I haven't for a bit. So I'm not going to lie. Like I got a little burnt out based on the way I was doing it. So I was doing a lot of, it was all songwriting. So every time I would stream, and I was doing it on average like 3 to 5 days a week for like 2 years probably. Obviously some breaks here and there, but I would hop on there and I would just start a song from scratch a lot of times. And sometimes it would work out great. I would finish an entire song in like 3 hours, 2 hours, and be like, oh, this is actually pretty good. And I'd feel good about it. People were in this, in the chat were stoked or whatever. And then my whole process was, I'd write the music on there, then I'd release it on Bandcamp afterwards. And these were all called Twitch sessions. And they're all still there on my Bandcamp. For anyone that wants to, backtrack on any of my music, I have like 180 songs on Bandcamp just from doing that stuff. And that's not, some of those songs ended up being Headcave songs. Some of those songs parts of them got used in Night Verses, but the majority of them are kind of just there. Like they're just their own thing, and I kind of left them there. And I have a couple of those. I made 2 compilations for Spotify and everything else where I picked like my favorites of each year and released them there. But yeah, I got a little burnt on it because like I started realizing, it was becoming more about quantity over quality, and like I was starting to not be as inspired, and I was realizing if I'm not inspired and I'm not having fun, then no one else is gonna have fun, and this isn't gonna be good. I'm making myself look bad in the process by not, being on and like being like, stoked like I was in the beginning. And so I wanted to take a break and kind of reevaluate or reassess, like if I go back to it, like what I would do differently, or maybe I've had enough of a break that I can just go back to straight up what I was doing and be, more inspired. But part of that break actually is what allowed me to focus on my solo stuff, like those other songs I was talking about, because those were songs that I wrote where no one was hearing them until they were done. And that kind of helped me kind of get back into a position of writing songs for myself and like, really just pushing myself to do what I like and not worry about if it's entertaining live. Because that's the other part, dude. Twitch is like, it's a weird thing to be live. You're in your room and like you have anywhere from 20 people to like 100 people sometimes or more if you're bigger on there, and you're a TV channel. Like you're providing entertainment essentially for people. And I have some people on there that were so cool, and like they're still with me now in my Discord, and like I feel like those people I don't think this applies to, but I think the idea of having to entertain randoms and stuff like that can be challenging. And sometimes what do you say? Like, what do you do?
Yeah, it's draining.
Yeah, it's draining. And like sometimes, writing music, like it's draining too. And if you're writing stuff that you're not even thinking is sounding that good, and you're like 20 minutes into a stream and you're like, shit, like I can't think of anything that's good right now. and this is getting boring, and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, what is this right now? So that's kind of what happened with that. But it was a lot of fun when I was starting it, and through COVID, it was like the best thing I could have done for myself and hopefully for other people. I feel like I had a cool community going with that stuff, and I will get back to it. But the next thing I get back to, I think, will be more performance based.
Yeah, and I mean, even if you do go back to writing, maybe just space it out more. You don't have to do that. That schedule during the pandemic made sense because you didn't have anything else going on. I mean, everybody was at home, bored. And it also is a very unique way of kind of jamming. You're kind of jamming because you're doing stuff and then you're getting feedback.
Exactly. That was the craziest part, is getting immediate reactions to songs I was writing. Because I was like, you know, like I was saying before, like I might go through ideas that I trash because I don't think it sounds cool. But when I do something and you see a bunch of like emojis or whatever it is, like you're just like, oh shit, okay, everyone's stoked. And then it kind of makes you feel more inspired to continue as well. So that era of it was really cool. And it made me better at writing in the sense of, you know, I have like a Rolodex of concepts and ideas of like what to pull from if I get stuck in a wall somewhere of writing. Like I have ways to like convince or like trick myself into doing something to continue the song versus like just stopping because I have no ideas.
Shit, man. It sounds like you don't ever get writer's block.
It's pretty rare that I would actually get writer's block because I don't fully believe in it. I feel like there's a point of laziness that comes with that, and a point of, you know, maybe the thing I would say most is like you can step away for a sec and go outside and like maybe, you know, open your eyes and stuff, get a little sun for a second. But other than that, I mean, there's so many different ways to write songs and so many different instruments and like ideas and tempos and keys and like notes and tunings and like all these different things that, you know, if you get stuck on something, just try to think of like what you haven't done or what would make no sense for you to do, and then do that and try it, and just throw yourself into a corner and be like, okay, well, even honestly, like there are times where I'm writing songs, and if I feel like I need a little bit more inspiration, I'll pretend like Eric and Riley are there, or that somebody's there to kind of judge what I'm doing. And I'll be like, would they actually think this is sick? And then like, it'll kind of psych me up to be like, yes or no. Like I kind of know, at least with those dudes, like what usually is cool. And like, it kind of gets me to places faster sometimes if I can put myself in a position to kind of be on display versus just like be alone in my room. So that's kind of one thing I'll do sometimes. But yeah, I mean, for guitar, I think there's so many things like harmonics, like pedals, different things can inspire me.
That's true. I mean, for me, whenever I would be stuck on something for writing, I took the BT Bam method and just cover a song.
Oh yeah.
They put out a whole album of covers, but yeah, covers to me gets that fire going too, because it's like, all right, well, I'm still doing something musically, and you know, it's something I'm familiar with, so I can get it out, and then maybe that'll just, you know, set the floodgates open, you know.
Oh, for sure. And that's another thing too, listening to other music that you like or even that you don't like, and just see why or how it exists and try to analyze like what they're doing that makes it cool. Like, what do you like about this song? Is it the riff? Is it the fact that the chorus comes in super fast? Like there's not a lot of time from the intro to the chorus. Like maybe that excitement is good, or maybe there's like a breakdown that has a really good build up if you're writing heavier music. There's just so many things to assess. And then there's also on the other side, there's formulas, and you start realizing like, okay, if I want to write a song that's like this kind of energy, this is what you do. And you kind of like have, you know, guidelines, so to speak, of different kinds of music to do as well, just based on analyzing so many bands. But yeah, with writing, I always tell people, like when I would give lessons sometimes on songwriting and stuff like that, I would tell people like, find your favorite songs and write the structure. Like, what's the first thing that happens? Is that the intro? Does that come back? Or is that just one off the intro? And then does it go into a riff that's like the hook riff? Or does it go into a verse, then a chorus, and then after the chorus, does it go back to the intro, or does it go back to a hook riff? Or there's things that happen in songs that you can kind of start to kind of build like a familiarity around.
Interesting. Do you do anything for yourself to keep yourself, I don't know, focused? Or like, I mean, some people drink teas or coffee. Coffee? Lots of coffee.
Lots of coffee.
Weed. Do you still smoke?
Yeah, I mean, that can definitely help. I feel like weed is depends how weed works for you. I feel like sometimes weed is good in the sense of opening creative potential, but also could be hindering as far as your actual work ethic and how much you want to do things that are not as like free in a way. So like maybe, you know, what I like to I like to sometimes I'll smoke a little with some coffee, and sometimes that's enough to get me in the right spot to where I can like kind of go about things for a bit. But I find if I overdo it, then, you know, sometimes it makes me a little bit, you know, I might get too like analytical about something, or I might overthink something, or maybe even hear something in a way that I probably wouldn't think it was as good if I wasn't like stoned or something. So like that, I feel like there's dynamics there that you have to find your comfort zone in. But absolutely, I mean, I feel like anything like that is there's potential for new possibilities there, but yeah, all within moderation, I guess.
For sure. I mean, I've had to carefully play around with the balances. I mean, we're in a time now where here in California anyway, there's so many different kinds too, the different strains that affect people differently. Some people, you know, like there's certain ones that make me sleepy. There's certain ones that make me super productive. There's some ones that make me just, for some reason, I get productive, but it's cleaning. Like I want to write, or I want to work on editing or doing something, and then I'll end up just cleaning my whole kitchen.
That's a good point, actually. There are times where I'll get ADD and like lose focus if that happens, and I think that is one of the bad parts. As far, not bad in the sense of being productive, because I think like it's easy to get distracted. So like, you know, I might be writing and I'll be like, oh, like this drum beat is kind of weird, and maybe the tone's a little weird. Wait, how do I get better drum tones? YouTube. Oh, wait, there's a related video for this. I'll watch that for 5 minutes. Oh, now I'm watching a freaking Joe Rogan episode I didn't mean to watch, or something like that. And it's like, I go down a rabbit hole very quickly if I have internet access. And one thing I've wanted to do, but I just don't have the actual balls to do it, is turn off my internet for the day, like, and just only focus on what isn't on the internet. But it's hard, man. It's hard to do that. It's hard to disconnect off the grid.
It's very difficult, and I've actually started to feel. So I've been cutting back a little bit on some of what I'm putting in my body in terms of, you know, weed or coffee and whatnot, because I've noticed more of the physical effects of these things now, and now I'm starting to realize, now that I'm not, you know, smoking as much and whatnot, I feel the physical effects of being on my phone, where before I was just kind of like doing stuff, but now with, you know, running the pod and all the events and things that I'm doing, I'm usually like, it's work. I have to sit there and post things and stories and this and that and interact. And by the time I'm done and I put the phone on, I physically feel like right here, like something pulling me. I'm like, what the fuck is that? Like, it's insane. It's insane. You got to really disconnect every once in a while.
The screen time is challenging on the phone because it's a necessary evil, but it's like, it sucks. Sometimes I really, really wish I could go back to the 90s. I'm sure so many people say this, but like go back to the 90s where everything was just word of mouth and how much effort you physically put in on the street to like get your name out or whatever. And it sucks that everything is run by social media now, to where like companies, record labels, whatever, maybe not ours, our record label is really cool, but in general, like having, you know, the need to put out content. It's like, oh, you wrote a really cool song. Cool. What's your content rollout for that? How many reels are you going to make? Are you going to cut it to portrait? Oh, you didn't? Well, you need to make another one because landscape videos don't do as well. Like there's so many stupid nuances that you have to consider.
Are you putting emojis on it? Some captions?
Like your captions, hashtags. Like I'll get in my head about that stuff. Absolutely. Like there are times where I'll write a riff that I want to share and I'll be like, shit, I don't know what to put as the caption. And then I'll sit there for 45 minutes thinking of what to write, and then I end up writing a freaking horns emoji or something. I'm just like, I'm an idiot. Like that's me, but I don't know if I'm assuming that's other people too.
Sometimes that's all it, like, it's the algorithm's weird, man. Sometimes just horns with nothing else, no hashtags or anything, will work better than like a you know, carefully crafted post. Like
100%.
I took a picture of, it was me and Braun from Mastodon just having a beer, and I didn't tag him. I didn't put anything. All I put was beer. And it had the most likes of any post I've ever posted. Like, what the fuck?
Dude, you never know. And that's like the tricky part, is back in the day, you actually did know. Like you knew there were certain hashtags. Like Instagram switches up their, specifically Instagram at least, switches up their algorithm situation often. I stopped caring about it, honestly. But when I was really caring about it, I would know like certain hashtags, if you did well, if that post did well, certain hashtags would let you live at the top of that hashtag for X amount of time. So say like if I was doing a metal riff that I thought, you know, this might do well on like in this format, I post it, my following or people following me are active on it, that pushes it into that hashtag. And then now that hashtag, anyone who's seeing that, which honestly, I don't go through hashtags. I don't know if people do that, but I guess people do. But if you go through hashtags, then it'll live there. And so now you have a video that would just sit at the top of this hashtag. And sometimes that would happen for multiple hashtags. So like, this is a shitty conversation. I'm just going down the rabbit hole. Instagram hashtags right now. But
no, but it's important. I feel like anybody that's watching this, a lot of people that watch this are musicians and I feel like we're in a time now where everybody's a content creator of some kind. So these are important things that I feel,
it's
we all
relevant,
deal with.
It's relevant stuff to consider. Honestly, if I were to really, you didn't ask, but if I were to give advice for this situation, I would just say always what seems to be best is just being yourself at all times. Like just like be an individual and don't be like too caught up in like posting, well, that guy posts shreddy riffs and he's taking off, I also need to post shreddy riffs. Don't do that. Like just do what you do well and just do that a lot and do it frequently and be consistent. Have like an aesthetic to what you do. For me, I was doing like, I always had videos with black background and like that was kind of, easy to do, but it was also something where people would see it and I would think it's my video maybe if they started seeing it a lot. And then that was kind of a thing where that kind of, I think, helped me grow. But it's tough. It's tough out there because there's so many people doing it too. And there's so many different content creators. And I don't like to think of myself as a content creator, but, it is what it is. I've definitely done that.
Technically, if you break down the definition of the word, musicians are content creators. They're creating some kind of thing, a content for people. It's not the modern terminology of content creator, like girls showing their asses and whatnot, but like, oh, check out my back workout. Like, no, you just want me to look at your ass. I get it. But it's still, it is a thing. And I've noticed what I've tried to do, like what you said, be yourself, but also pay attention to what's happening underneath the content of people that it's actually working. Like not the content itself. Don't mimic the content, but like the captions and the way that they put their hashtags and whatnot. Like if that's working for them, then maybe following suit for that might work for you. Maybe.
Also, if that's your goal is to get big on social media, then yes, there are things absolutely you should be paying attention to.
Yeah. And
I think there's benefits to that stuff. I think growing a page for the sake of advertising something you are passionate about, whether it's music or whatever art you're doing, I think it is important, and it's kind of is the way. I mean, the unfortunate but also positive reality of these scenarios is everything is up to you at this point. Like you have all the possibility to be quote unquote successful or famous just off of things you can do yourself. You don't need a label. You don't need a bunch of money per se. You don't need like any type of platform besides the social media platforms. If your content is what people want to watch, then you'll make it. And there's so many people that are super successful off of eating food in their car. So, you never really know what'll happen. It's crazy.
Yeah. Speaking of that, you mentioned the label, Equal Visions is the label you're on.
Yeah.
What are they providing for you in terms of support? Because like you said, we're in a time where anybody can record, anybody can put their own stuff out, anybody can be their own content creator. What is it that Equal Visions is providing you to that you found it a good reason to be with them?
Yeah, Equal Vision's a really cool label. Dan, the owner, is one of the nicest dudes and like very supportive of our band. And for our band being so DIY and like wanting to do so much ourselves and be so hands-on with our art and music and stuff, we wanted to align ourselves with a label that would allow us to be free like that, but also provide guidance when we need it and provide obviously like, budgets for things if we need it. And, they're very cool about letting us kind of do our thing. And then when we need them, they step up. And if we have any questions ever about anything, whether it's, printing vinyl or anything that we don't actually maybe know all the fine details of, they're happy to like always be there for us on that. And, their supportiveness is a big reason why I have no issue staying with them. Cause like, I don't think you need a label these days, but I feel like Equal Vision is 100% doing everything that we could ever want, as far as like a partner to work with. And, again, Dan and everyone there is awesome. So, as far as what they provide us, I would just say like guidance and, budget obviously is a big part of why you would want a label. I think if you don't have either the means to do certain components to a release, whether it's, publicity, like getting a PR person or getting, vinyls or CDs printed, merch, things like that, we have a sense of, but they're also helpful in those regards. And yeah, just, you know, any type of labels can do a lot depending on how much you want to do. So like if you want to be very hands-on with your project, then a label might be cool with that, like ours, where they're like, yeah, you know, we trust in what you guys do and we support that, and whatever, kind of like whatever you need sort of is how our situation is with them. And I'm grateful for that, because I think it's hard to invest in a band like us sometimes where we're not, well, I don't want to say like us, but just conceptually as an instrumental project, as like an experimental kind of project, there's no guarantee other than how hard we're willing to work, which I think is why they support us in that way too.
Nice. Yeah. In terms of tour, you guys have a tour planned?
Yeah. So touring, we definitely will be doing next year. That'll be like next year will be when we hit everything. So we'll be doing some stuff in Europe and UK for sure. Which I'm super excited for, to get back out there. US, definitely. I don't have anything I can say just yet, but we are working on stuff. So that's actively in motion. We will definitely be out on this record, which I can't wait to play these songs live. It's going to be so fun. And yeah, that's kind of this whole rest of the year is more just about making all the video content and stuff like that, video stuff to go with all the songs, and whether that's playthroughs or music videos or, you know, live performances. We have a lot of plans for everything on this record.
What's your ideal tour package for you guys, if you were to like pick bands that are active right now?
Honestly, I'm sure a lot of bands would agree, but I would love to tour with Deftones. I'd love to tour with Tool. You know, Animals as leaders, like those dudes are always sick, and we're friends with them. I would assume at some point we'll be doing some stuff together. And yeah, I mean, there's a whole, I think a lot of the, you know, we've toured with Intervals, and, you know, Aaron's the man, and like all those dudes are really cool. And like, I think any instrumental band that we haven't toured with, I think would be interesting to see, you know, the different audiences there. Russian Circles is a band I would like to go out with. I think they have a different fan base than I think even like Animals would have and stuff like that. I think there's other worlds that we haven't explored yet, and I think that would be really cool. But yeah, as far as like, you know, big bands, I would say Deftones and Tool are on the highest tier for me of bands I'd want to go with.
Let's put it out there. All right. A couple of questions in like rapid fire format. What do you do to maintain your hairline? Because holy shit, dude, your hairline is like, so it's perfect. I have no hair, so I'm very curious. Do you do any like shampooing, pomades? Like, what are you doing, bro?
Honestly,
is it all jeans?
I spend about 4 hours. No, I'm just kidding. I don't do anything to my hair. I cut my own hair, but I don't know what that. I don't think that has anything to do with it. It's probably why my hair looks weird. But I don't know. I shampoo my hair.
How old are you now?
35.
Yeah, by now you should be balding if you're gonna.
I feel like, honestly, I feel my hair has thinned out over the last few years. Every time I say that around other people, they're like, "Oh no, your hair's so thick." But I notice it. But I don't know. It just does its thing, and then I cut it when I feel like it's done its thing for too long.
Good. I'll just blame it on genes then. I'll blame my dad for my bald head. All right. If you were to create a product that was for you, for Night Verses or something like that, is there anything that you would do? Like, let's say a beer, a coffee, you know, bands like to branch out when they start getting bigger.
Yeah. I think a coffee would be pretty cool. Maybe like a THC coffee, so I can just kill two birds with one stone in the morning. No, I don't know. I think coffee would be pretty cool. I think I actually have a pedal concept in mind, which I don't really want to say because I feel like it'll get made at some point. But I need to hit up some companies to see if I can make that happen. But there's something I've done with pedals that I kind of combine two pedals into one motion, and I feel like if I could put that on one actual pedal, it'd be really cool. Some of you guys might know what I'm talking about if you know anything that I've shared on that end, but I don't know. I think if I had a strain of coffee, beer would be cool too. I don't really drink that much though, so I don't know if I would appreciate it as much as coffee, because we all drink coffee. So Nespresso, we would like a Nespresso capsule.
Night Versus espresso capsule.
Night Versus espresso capsule, dude. Shit's good. If somebody told you no more music and you had to do something creatively, where would you go? Art, comedy, acting? I for sure couldn't do comedy. I doubt I could act. Honestly, if I could start everything over again, I would probably try to be like a chef or something. I feel like cooking is another art form that I enjoy a lot, and I like the idea. Like I don't cook off recipes usually unless I have to for something, but generally like I like to just kind of freestyle food.
So you're not a Hello Fresh guy?
No, I mean actually those are pretty cool. They're good. Portions are never enough for me, but you know they're good.
Never. It's so small. My God.
The serving size is not a real thing.
But maybe we're bigger guys and we just eat too much. I don't know.
I like to eat. But I feel like that would be pretty fun. Like to be a chef. Like I watch a lot of Food Network, so like Michael Vitaggio, like his style of cooking where it's very like unique and kind of weird and creative, and like he kind of like gets his way through to making some weird shit that like, you know, some other chef might not make, even if they've been a chef for years beyond him. Like I like the idea of creativity in that way. And like when I cook, you know, I just kind of go off of what I think would work and like what flavors I like and like what seasonings I like and stuff like that. And I attribute that a lot to music as well. It's like pedals or spices and, you know, whatever, however you want to look at it. I feel like there's a lot of parallels to both music and cooking. So I would say that. Another thing would be video games, but I don't even know where to begin with coding a video game. But I love video games, and like I have, you know, concepts in mind for what cool video game could be, and it would be fun to make that, but I'm not even anywhere close to that.
Just make a bunch of money, and then you can pay coders to do it for you.
I'd love to do that.
Yeah, right. That's actually one of the questions I had here with gaming. I know you game. We've played Warzone a few times.
Yeah.
Like, are you still playing?
I still play Warzone. That's
Still
the only game
Warzone?
I play.
It's the only game you play?
Yeah, currently. I will play. I like, for some reason, Warzone, as frustrating as that game can be, the ever looming chance of a victory in that game is so like addictive that I just love how it's the same setting every time, sort of, other than depending on where you drop. But depending on where you drop and who you drop next to you and like what guns you find for all that, there's a different game every time you play it. And I think that's so cool. And like the fact that you can stand on top of a building and stare out in this massive map and just see activity from like real people is crazy to me. Like that is so sick. And I never lose like value of just how epic we are, or the point we're at with video games like that. Or at least multiplayer wise. But I've missed out on plenty of single player games. Like I haven't played Elden Ring. I haven't played, you know, a lot of the bigger ones that have come out recently. The last one I really got into was like Red Dead Redemption 2 and like Spider-Man, and actually God of War. I did play God of War for a little bit.
Okay.
But yeah, I like the shooters. So I think the next one I would get is probably going to be like Counter-Strike whenever that drops, the new Counter-Strike. Because that was my shit as a kid. Back in the day, I used to play so many Counter-Strike, like LAN parties and just like going to like PC cafes and, you know, just playing a lot of Counter-Strike and StarCraft. That was a lot of StarCraft.
I'm excited about the new Modern Warfare that's coming. The trailer looked cool. The event that they did in Warzone was fun to do.
Yeah. I'm curious what they're going to do with Warzone, actually, because they always switch things up when a new Modern Warfare comes out. Or, I mean, a new, like, I guess a new Modern Warfare.
New Call of Duty.
Well, because there's different companies that make them, all right? So there's, like, Treyarch, Infinity Ward, and Sledgehammer, I think, are, like, the three that they rotate between. And hopefully the next one doesn't, you know, fuck shit up. Because every time they release something new, it always gets weird at first. And I feel like right now it's in a pretty good spot. I would love for them. I don't know why they don't just put out the original map. Like Verdansk needs to come out again, and I feel like they're about to do that on this new one. I've watched some videos that make me feel like that.
I may or may not have information.
There you go. We'll talk after the video.
Yeah, I can't get my wife fired, but I know some stuff.
Yeah. So I feel like that's where they're going. Hopefully that they do. But yeah, I don't know. I think that game is awesome, and yeah, I'm down. Starfield looks pretty cool, kind of, but I've heard mixed things about it.
I just dumped 180 hours into Starfield.
Oh, shit.
It sucked my life out of me. It was Labor Day weekend, so when it launched, so I spent the entire weekend, 4 days, just dumping like 12 hours a day. I put everything aside, all the podcasting shit. I was like, nope, because I'm a big like nerd for sci-fi and like choose your own adventure shit. When I was a little kid, those choose your own adventure books.
For sure.
And dude, that's what that game is. It's you pick dialogue choices that branch you out in a one way in the story. Like you replay the game and choose the other option, and it's a whole other fucking story.
Yeah.
So I lost my mind playing that game. I mean, I'm still playing it. I'm still trying to 100% it, but that one really sucked me in. And
so you liked it?
Oh, I loved it. Yeah, it's not perfect. Yeah, some of the graphics can get a little clunky from time to time, or some of the limitations or whatever, but overall, like what they did is just so ridiculous. It's so immersive and so big. The fact that you can there's like 1,000 planets so you can land on. It's like, whew, I don't know. That's always been my dream as a kid. When I was a little kid, like 5, I think they asked me like, what do you want to be? I wanted to be like an astronaut, I think it was, and I didn't realize how much math goes into it, so I just gave up on that dream real quick. The math killed me. I hate math.
The going to space part as well.
Yeah, I want to go to space and like I want to go to space. I want to like land on planets and like touch new things and meet aliens. I don't know, but the math part, no, thank you.
I'm terrified of going to space. That sounds so scary to me. But
I don't know why. I'm more scared of the ocean.
I'm also scared of the ocean. I don't know what I'm more scared of. Probably the ocean, actually, if I were to actually pick. I don't like the idea of not
knowing what's there.
Exactly. Like that part, the massiveness of like at least if you're in space, you can see what's around you.
Yeah.
So I would imagine at least. Whereas like if you're in the ocean, you're floating. You don't know what the hell's below you. You don't know.
It's so dark.
Yeah, and if it's dark outside, like I can't even think of a more terrifying scenario than floating in a pitch black ocean. Like that's like hell.
And look, man, that's where the aliens are. Because
could be.
Think about it. The planet is mostly oceans. So if the math is there where if they're going to crash land, chances are they're going to land in the ocean.
Yeah,
there's more water than land.
They probably land and we think they crash, but really they're just going down to their base.
There. Yeah, their base is down there. I mean, that's where I'm at. Where what scares me most about the ocean is the fact that it's probably full of aliens. Also, I had a weird mushroom trip a few years back where I actually spoke to Poseidon, or who I thought was Poseidon. It was just a giant face, and it just told me to get out. And I was like, absolutely, right away. I'm out of here. I just went away. So I don't fuck with the ocean, but like space to me doesn't, like you said, because I can see what's out there. I don't feel that frightened by it, but
I think it's the thing that freaks me out about space is the vastness of that is crazy. It makes you immediately realize how small we are on Earth, and also like gravity is crazy to me. Like the idea that you can float away and like not be able to breathe or something like that, like to freeze as well because it's like super cold out there, right? Like that, all of that stuff's a little crazy.
Well, all that can happen on the ocean.
That's true.
You can get swept away and drown and not be able to breathe and freeze in the Arctic.
I avoid both most of the time.
What do you think about what do you think about the aliens now that we're talking about it? Like Mexico showed some aliens that look like paper mache. What are your thoughts? You think that's real?
I think that I don't know, man. I've seen so many memes that I'm just so confused on what actually is real on that stuff. But like I saw one it said it was a cake. Have you seen that?
Oh, yeah.
And then I actually thought, oh, wait, it was a cake. I didn't realize there was like a full-on hearing. So I was like,
oh, yeah.
So now I don't really know. I mean, I've always believed that aliens are real. So I don't think it's far-fetched by any means to imagine that, they are real. I think if we exist, like, why wouldn't they exist? I think that's kind of the base point of all of that. But I feel like the aliens in the sense of like the movies, I don't know if it's like that per se as much as like, maybe they're like not a threat, but they've always kind of been around or something like that. Like I feel like maybe they're helping us in some ways. Like maybe they provide things that like we don't know that they're providing.
Yeah. Like cellular Wi-Fi.
Yeah, like Wi-Fi, TikTok. No, I'm just kidding. No, I don't really know. I mean, I like to think they're real, and I like to think that, if they were ever a threat, that we would have a heads up as to like what to do. But I don't know if I think we're just kind of screwed, to be honest.
Yeah, government doesn't know what they're doing now with humans. You think they're going to know what to do with aliens?
We'll put on a mask to hide from the aliens.
Oh my God. Well, I think they're real, but I think the Mexican one's fake only because, I mean, there's no genitalia on that thing. It's not even.
Dude,
I mean,
maybe they're
maybe
so
it doesn't
advanced
need
they
it.
don't need it anymore. Yeah,
I guess, but
maybe it just evaporates.
they
from
look.
their
It looks
body.
so weak and small, and like the hips are like, I don't know, perfectly aligned with the legs. Where like it just didn't seem. I don't know. Like, if that's a real alien, I'm disappointed because that's small. I want bigger, like more threatening forces. In order for me to be, all right, cool, yeah, I'll respect your space. But if that little thing came to my farm and started trying to eat a cow, like I'm just gonna spray it or something, you know? Like I'm not worried about it.
That one is small.
Yeah.
There's probably others that.
Those are the dumb ones that got lost here.
Exactly. I thought about that too, actually. Like the ones that we find are the ones that are lost or like got banished from like their planet or something random like that, and they just like got sucked into our solar system.
Got
somehow
stuck in
and just,
Mexico. Oof. I'm just kidding.
But yeah, I feel like we're as close as ever to accepting it. The weirdest part to me though is that people don't care.
Well, yeah.
Like that's tripping me out. Like I feel like there's like, 10 years ago or something like that, people would have been like losing their minds over the fact that there might be aliens that are confirmed or whatever. And like no one's officially confirming. And like the other thing too with like the US hearing that we had was a little bit weird to like, nobody was like saying definitively that there are aliens. They were just saying there
like
was other DNA on the thing,
stuff,
but that could be like a bug, like that we don't know. So it's kind of like a weird ambiguous thing still. So I don't know, man. I feel like
I think we'll freak out if they have like a press conference and one of them comes out alive,
dude,
walking and like says
Hell
something.
yeah,
Then the people will be like, "Oh shit!"
I mean, I'm still waiting for a ship to just emerge from the sky, and like that would be like
Or from the ocean.
Independence Day shit, or from the ocean, dude. That would be what would be more epic, from the sky or the ocean?
Oof, I think the
like-
ocean, because they'll be like, "Holy shit, they've been here the whole time."
Yeah, you just see a massive thing just emerge. Yeah, that would probably be insane.
Yeah, I mean, either way, it'll be trippy as hell. But all right, well, thank you, dude, for coming out all the way to Hollywood, hanging out with me for an hour or so. Let the people know, where do they get all your stuff? Where do they follow you? Where do they get your content?
Yeah. Pretty much my Instagram is probably the best place. That's kind of like my whole business card, so to speak. That's just at Nick DePirro, NickDePirro. And I have a link to everything there. So Night Versus, Headcave, all my solo music. There's a link in bio that you can hit. Got everything in there. Look me up on Spotify, wherever you stream music. Streaming is a cool way to support people, even if you're not actually listening. Throw that shit on mute, because if you don't like any of my music, you can still support me and just let it play. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Night Versus will be pretty active next year, as well as Headcave, I believe. So just keep a lookout for that if you're interested. Check out our new first half of our record. Get into it so that when we play songs and you come see us, the songs. And the second half will be out pretty soon, and then you'll have the whole thing.
Hell yeah. Please go check it out. It's fantastic. Really, like layers and layers and layers of just intricate notes. And, if you're into prog metal or just anything heavy or anything even melodic, because even Seance with Justin Chancellor is kind of a mellow, chill song. But just really beautiful music. Every sound has a color in the valley of the night. Go listen to it. Pick up the vinyl. It's a beautiful package, like I said, with the 16-page color artwork for each song. So please support, because you don't understand. Yes, the streaming helps, but if you pick up the record, that's more of a bigger impact for the band as well.
Yeah, definitely.
But all right, thank you guys for watching. See you next week.